CareerQuest is our channel where we invite guests on that'll help our audience learn, grow, and explore new concepts they may not have thought about before. Today, I've got Adam Knapp here with me. And Adam, you handed me this earlier, and so I want to talk first a little bit about this higher purpose hiking. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so with my coaching business, Knapp Creative Coaching, I have come upon a really cool idea of adapting to something I love to do, and I've been doing ever since I was a kid. I go on hikes. My dad and my mom, they would take us on hikes. Every time we went somewhere, we would always end up parking the furthest distance away, and we would walk to the thing that we were doing. It was one of those kind of natural flows in my family was walking. And so as I've moved through my career as an educator and now I'm, running my own business, I was looking for a thing that I love to do that I can accommodate and put into my business structure now. And it happened upon hiking and higher purpose hiking. It's kind of a play on words. We live in the Western North Carolina. We have a lot of tall mountains. So, as you climb up the mountains, you're getting higher and you have a purpose. The purpose of getting to the peak is to see the vistas and see all the Blue Ridge underneath. But also the purpose is to achieve a goal of starting a hike and going and coming back. But it's also a play on words, higher purpose, because I think for me, there's a spiritual element to hiking, to being in nature. I know pretty much unequivocally, without a doubt, that whenever I go on a hike with somebody or with a group of people, when I take teams out, we come back and we're grounded. We're much more clear on some of the ideas that we were kind of puzzling around, and we're more, more happy. Nature is a natural balancing point for our emotions and for our thoughts.
So it's kind of coaching in motion.
Totally coaching in motion, absolutely.
Yeah.
And when you get the body involved in learning, bodily kinesthetic, through music, through dance, through art, through writing, through movement of any kind, hiking, there's more learning going on. That's one of the reasons why you see a lot of people in the career technical education programs succeeding, because they're actually using their hands and they're building things and they're creating things. Not everybody in the world learns through books. And so I think the same is true. Not everybody can evolve emotionally and intellectually by just thinking about it. You have to go do stuff. And so I like this idea of combining hiking with coaching. When I taught first grade, we went on hikes a lot. We went to national parks. We had little go bags that had little magnifying glasses and little journals. And so I taught people how to pay attention to the world around them. Because what happens when we pay attention to the world around us? I mean, we see more of ourselves. And sometimes ourself sneaks up on us and we get an insight about who we are because of the trials and tribulations, or because of the course that we choose to hike on. If we go on a very difficult hike that has a lot of elevation gain and it's strenuous and we make it, we're proud of ourselves. We overcame something. Imagine stacking up months and months and months of hiking and overcoming an obstacle that's called a mountain or a distance. And then we keep coming back to the start point and keep coming back and keep coming back. We're developing a sense of resistance to difficulties. We're creating a sense of believing in ourselves. We're creating a sense of setting a goal and achieving it. We're creating a sense of following through on a schedule. I mean, if you tell a friend you're going to show up at a hike and you don't, what do you think that friend's going to do? But if you show up and you keep showing up, essentially what's going to happen is your bond's going to deepen. And so there's a lot that goes on in hiking. And I've had a lot of success taking clients for walk and talks, I call them.
Yeah. You mentioned paying attention.
Yeah,
Obviously, if you're walking down the trail, there's roots, there's rocks, you got to pay attention.
absolutely.
How much of that plays into just people getting in their own way stuck inside and not paying attention to things outside and missing opportunities that are readily available because they're kind of stuck inside?
Yeah, yeah. That happens a lot. So there's two ways of looking at it, right? So you have the path itself, the road, the trail, the greenway. It has undulations, ups and downs, roots, obstacles. If you're not paying attention, you trip and fall. But also there's also the beauty around. You have flowers, you have birds, you have animals, you have types of trees, you have vistas. When we learn to balance the step-by-step procedure of just walking our daily life, whatever it is, and then we also pay attention to the environment that we're walking through, we're gathering more information and more data about the world around us. And when we successfully manage to walk across a certain path, noticing things at the same time, we're gathering a much more sense of understanding of how things operate. Our psychology really, I think, appreciates complexity, but we don't know how to manage complexity because it gets too complex and we get confused. But complexity comes from basics. You've heard probably many times people say, stick to the basics. Like when you go to basketball training or football or track or whatever, or you go to math or English class, when you stick to the basics, you succeed, period.
Well, it sounds like a great idea.
Yep.
And I can tell you're passionate about this.
Oh, yeah.
But what else has got you excited right now? What are some other things that you've got irons in the fire with?
Well, for me, I'm trying some new things that I have never done before as a business owner. I have been pushing into the realm of working with more small teams and corporate teams, developing learning protocols for businesses and for corporations to engage more fully with kind of mission vision kind of conversations. That's really fun. I'm also in conversations with folks to help develop strategies for increasing learning outcomes, which is always kind of fun. Something else I'm really excited about is I'm also a grandfather. My son and his wife have had a baby, and so she's 11 weeks young, and such a great, addition to my family, to our family. And so I'm learning a lot on what it's like to be a grandfather, and that's really special. But what's interesting is kind of funny, kind of links up to some of the other things we're talking about. Now that there's another child in the family, and it's my son's child, I feel a more obligation to find ways to be successful for myself, so I could be a support and be a backbone for the family's growth. Because my son's not going to stop at one. I think they're going to have several children, and he has a business. He's growing. So it's interesting. I'm noticing I'm pressing into some new realms of my own emotional development of how to be available for another person in this world. Because, I mean, it takes a lot of heart.
So how are you, you're on the journey, but then you're helping people also that are on the journey. What are some things that you can share with us about, ways that people can grow their business or make new connections, that kind of thing?
Well, it's interesting because to make new connections and grow your business, those two things are kind of go hand in hand. You gotta keep putting yourself into places that are new and unfamiliar. So I look online at for possibilities for networking. I look in the daily newspaper for possibilities. I ask for being involved. Something that really weaves through it, I think, that I'm noticing is volunteering and serving a community. I think when I give my time and give of myself to a community repeatedly, week by week by week, I'm noticing that I learn more about where I could grow my business. When I volunteer and give service to the community, I find places for me to grow. When I find places for me to grow, I'm finding places for my business to grow. Now, is it expedient and growth that happens? No, it's the long kind of marathon instead of a sprint. But so there's a lot of places here in Western North Carolina for networking. There's a lot of places for networking across the state. I've worked with the Small Business Center. On the campus of AB Tech. There's a office, and there's 58 small business centers stretched across the North Carolina Small Business Center Network. It's called.
Okay.
And there's 58 centers, and it's free to North Carolina residents.
Wow.
And you can build a business from start to success, all with support, with mentoring, with classes. I've taught some of those classes for a number of about a year and a half, and that was really fun. So again, find places to serve and to provide time for you to for me to connect and for you to connect and to learn more about what's going on in the community. Because whenever you learn more about the community, you're going to learn more about yourself.
Offline, before we got onto the interview, we were talking, and you mentioned the power of the word yes. I believe if somebody maybe have given you that advice not to turn something down, to always at least explore it.
Yes. And I think whenever we have the opportunity to say yes, I think there's the valuable results come from that. But saying yes is an empowerment kind of process, because to say yes means that you need to know your schedule. If someone asks you to do something, you need to be able to know if you can. So to know if you can, you got to know what your days planned out and your weeks planned out or your months planned out. So you can't say, because you don't want to say yes and then say no very often. Some people are forgiving, but once you say yes, you commit, and then you do. There's a cool improv strategy that's called yes and. And so when you're going improvisational acting or theater or even comedy, there's always this strategy. If someone presents an idea, you look at the idea, you hear the idea, and then you say yes and you add some details.
Right. That's cool.
So you got to know your schedule. You got to know the community around you. And I think to be able to say yes with kind of a sense of empowerment and with confidence, you also have to know your goals, because you don't want to say yes to things that don't aim in the direction you're aiming.
I hear you.
And a goal is a bullseye that you're aiming at. Sometimes you hit it, sometimes you get a little off, but you don't want to change your timetable to take you to a different bullseye that you haven't been planning on. Now, of course, if you say yes to something new, you might get overly distracted, but you might have an opportunity to peek out too. So behind the word yes is a lot of acknowledgement of what's going on in your world, and knowing if you have time, knowing if you have the bandwidth, knowing if you're an introvert or an extrovert. Because if you're an introvert and you say yes to a lot of things, what do you think is going to happen to your energy?
Right.
You're going to be worn out, or you're not going to be able to have enough energy. So you got to have self-awareness. You got to have self-awareness to grow anything.
Absolutely. Wow. I would never have thought that much about the word yes.
I know, right? It is cool. It is cool how it's subtle.
Adam, thank you again for coming in and talking with us.
Sure.
Adam from Knapp Creative. Thank you guys for sharing this time with us.
Appreciate it. Thanks.